Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down. Oh, folks, this is a movie I saw a while back. Happened during my Avengers build-up. That I just absolutely loved and have been dying to talk about. I finally have found some time, collected all of my thoughts, and gathered you here. So you know the drill. Pull up a chair, take a seat. Now, I guess technically I should probably just not... I mean, I should probably do that the whole video, because of course I am talking about A Quiet Place. Oh my goodness, man. John Krasinski. My friend. Yet another person coming from the comedy realm. Now, obviously, John's been doing a lot of stuff other than comedy in his acting career since leaving The Office. But very much like Jordan Peele, also from the comedy world. You know, this person who started in comedy brings us a spectacular horror film. Oh my gosh, man, this movie, blown away, man. So creative, so inventive. I could go on and on and on and on, and I will. But you know how we roll here at the Cinema Sit-Down. We start with the bad, and we end with the good. And for me, there's really almost nothing wrong with this movie. It's so tight. It's so just well put together. I mean, everything about it is just at a excellent level. But I'll throw this in here only because it got so much hype, right? About like, oh, it's quiet and it's scary. And it's one of the most terrifying movies ever. Now, look, I don't think this is a bad thing. But put it in the bad conversation, because I think some people might be disappointed if they're looking for something very specific, right? You hear scary movie and you hear, oh my god, this movie's amazing. You expect maybe a certain level, and there's not a lot of. I felt very much the same with it. There's not a ton of jump scares. When there are jump scares, oh, they hit. But there's not a ton of it, and it's not necessarily like a scary movie. The tension is off the charts. And what you're physically watching happen on screen is legitimately terrifying. It's very much how I felt with it. Also, fantastic horror movie last year. But it was the same kind of thing, right? Like, I was expecting to be absolutely terrified the whole movie. And you're not. You're not going to be terrified this whole movie. But what you're watching is definitely terrifying. And I tell you, the suspense and the tension, it's so... maybe some of the best I've ever seen in a movie. It's absolutely spectacular. And like I said, when it does want you to jump, it makes you jump through the roof. But it's not non-stop in that way. It's more tense, the whole movie. And we'll get into how they break that up and why it works so well. The only other thing I'd say is the ending, although the last shot gets me jacked up. And I absolutely love it. I maybe would have liked to have seen 10-15 minutes more of the movie. Our monsters, there's a specific number of them, and when the movie ends, there's still a specific number, and I would have maybe liked to have seen that number addressed, more than one, like seeing them take on these creatures more than once toward the end. I think you could have still ended it the way you end it, but could have given us a little bit more, because the end itself is just like the way it all builds up and boom, finishes, absolutely wonderful. I would have liked to have seen maybe more of that. I think there's a few things you could have done with the kids. Obviously, I haven't said it yet. We're now 4 minutes in. This is a non-spoiler review. I will not spoil anything in this review. I might do a spoiler review where I can kind of maybe get into stuff that I would have liked to have seen at the end of the movie. But like I said, what they give you is wonderful. I think you maybe could have just added a little bit more to it. But other than that, man, there is really nothing to complain about in this film. It's so well done, and it all starts at the very top with John Krasinski. He did a phenomenal job. Oh, man. I mean, the thing I love the most, his vision. His vision is so well conceived. You can totally understand and see what he's trying to accomplish with this movie, and he obtains everything that he's trying to absolutely superbly. I love how he creates, like I said, a very super tense, suspenseful movie, right? It's like hyper tension, to the max. Like you pull that as tight as you can pull it in this movie. But he does a really good job of breaking it up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But like he does blend the horror, right? You're not just 10th Street the whole movie. He finds good ways to cut it. Makes you laugh a couple times. Not too much. The most of the tension breaks are just kind of like, hey, we're having this normal scene that's happening before the next tense situation comes up. But he delivers it in this just unbelievably creative, new way that we've really never seen before. The thing that I think works so well with this movie is that this is really at its core a family movie. This is a movie about a family, about their very specific bond that happens to be that we're watching this kind of family story take place amongst this global event that is absolutely horrifying. Works very similarly to the way in which Cloverfield was successful, in that we're just watching this one story and we don't need a ton of context. They do give us a scene where there's kind of like Krasinski kind of has a war room that has like news clippings and things that kind of give you enough about the story to understand what we're watching. But know that event is not what the movie is about. It's about what this family is experiencing while this event's going on. And it is so well done in that respect. It's just so well executed, and you can tell that this movie is exactly what John Krasinski wanted. And like I said, he's able to give you this really strong, heartfelt, emotional family story. That just tears you to pieces at times. That makes you really go like, oh man, like these really touching moments mixed in with all this absolute insane horror that's going around them. And it makes makes the audience go through this full range of emotions. We're not just terrified. We're not just scared. We're not just, feeling the tension. We get this really beautifully well thought out, wonderful family story intermingled with all this horror, and it makes the whole movie work. It makes it more than just a horror film. It makes it a really, really good film. And some of that, I think, has to do with the opening. The opening scene is one of several scenes in this movie that just does it for me, man. And this opening sequence, it sets the tone. Its use of all natural sound. There's no score to the opening scene that I remember. I don't think there's any. I think it's just non-stop. Just whatever is going on in the scene is all you're hearing. And oh man, it brings you to the absolute tensest place you can get. Ends with something that is absolutely tells you how this movie is gonna run, and don't be expecting certain things because this movie will catch you off guard. And it does all of that in the opening sequence, and it's so well done. And like it said, man, it just blindsides you, and you're like, oh wow, this is the ride we're about to go on. If you're into that kind of ride, you should get real excited by the time the opening title card comes up. And like I said, kind of going into that scene, it's the use of natural sound. Krasinski does such an amazing job of using nat sound to build tension in scenes. When all you can hear is the stuff around you, anything that happens, man, that's sound-oriented gets you to freak out. My little sister dropped her cup, and it made a fairly loud noise during the movie, and I was like, are you kidding? Like, you trying to die right now? Like, the way he uses that builds you to a point where when things in the theater make noise, or when things finally make noise on screen, it gets you to jump, and you're like, oh no, because you know what's coming. Because of, again, what you see at the very beginning of the movie. Sets the whole thing right from the get-go. And he blends it well with the score. The score is really, really well put together also. Really amplifies the tension when it needs to, right? Like, there's some moments where things are kind of more crazy than tense, and that just, you lose some of that sound and get the score back, and it just raises everything up. And the way he blends that mix back and forth works wonderfully through the entire movie. As I said, the family story is one of the things I absolutely love the most in this movie. Like I said, it's well written, it's well thought out, it's touching, it's emotional, and you really get to see how tight-knit this family is, man. You see what bonds them, and just the way they interact with each other, the way the parents interact with the kids, and vice versa. And there are strong conversations coming from both sides where both adults and kids are learning things. And it all just builds in itself to this thing that you start to care so much about. You care so much about all these characters because of how well it's written. You really get to feel that like they're a family. Right now we know Krasinski and Emily Blunt are husband and wife in real life, so that works really well, man. You get the mother-father thing from them really, really well. But clearly, however much time they spent with the kids, you feel like what you're watching is an actual family. And that just amplifies everything else, right? Because you really feel like there's a lot at stake watching the movie. I loved that John Krasinski opted to use an actual deaf girl, his daughter. So the movie is about the Abbotts. Evelyn Abbott is Emily Blunt's character. Lee Abbott, John Krasinski's. Reagan Abbott is played by Melissa Simmons, who we're going to talk about right now. Marcus Abbott, played by Noah Jupe, and Bo Abbott, played by Cade Woodward. So that's our family, and Reagan Abbott is deaf in the movie, and Krasinski brilliantly said, we have to get an actual deaf girl to play this role, and it works. It paid off so well. She's awesome in the movie. And what we get with her that's really cool is when we get scenes from her perspective, we lose all sound. So now it's not like Nat sound, right? Nat sound, we could hear the creatures coming. We lose all sound sometimes with her, and that takes you to a whole different kind of like scary, tense terror place, because all of a sudden things drop and you couldn't hear them coming at all, and then you know that she can't hear them coming and they're right behind her. It just changes the version of fear that you're being given, and again blows it through the roof. And I thought it was such a clever move to put that in the movie, but know that we're dealing with someone who actually is deaf. Like when they were filming, if there was stuff behind her, she couldn't actually hear. And I think that plays into her facial expressions, and the facial expressions from all of the characters across the board is phenomenal in this movie, because that's how they have to convey most of the stuff through this movie. They're able to talk a few times, but very, very limited amount of speaking. And the other thing that I love is that the kids make mistakes. And they learn from those mistakes, and all of those mistakes have high stakes. If you mess up, you're talking life or death every single time. And again, that just adds to the fear and the tension of the movie, and adds to the way this family works with itself. Individually, if we're talking about the characters, look, John Krasinski, the actor, not John Krasinski, the director, it is phenomenal, man. You really, like I said, both him and Emily Blunt, you feel the mom and dad stuff with them. Like, you really get that these are parents that we're watching on screen together. And, I mean, he just rips your heart out of your chest. The looks and the expressions that he conveys are so emotional and so strong at times. Just rips your heart out of your chest, man. And I love that he's strong and he's fearless. He's everything that he needs to be. But then there is one thing about him, to at least some of the characters, a major detriment, and it's something that he doesn't realize about himself, that plays so well into the story and what leads up to him toward the end of the movie, that just makes you go, oh my god, like you just feel everything. So, like, oh my lord. Emily Blunt, she steals the movie, man. I mean, John Krasinski said it through all of his press stuff. She's one of the most talented actresses he's ever worked with. She's phenomenal in this movie, man. I mean, you want to talk about facial expressions. She has 2 sequences in this movie that just make you cringe and want to scream out, because you just know everything that she's going. And I'm sure certain women know what she's going through a hell of a lot more than dudes do. And what you watch her go through, man, she just conveys everything through her body language, and it's amazing. And she's the perfect strong mother figure. The way she plays the mom. Like I said, her and Krasinski being married, I think definitely benefited. And I mean, she's caring and loving, but she is strong and fearless too, because she has to be. There's no choice. You have to be strong and fearless at some point for everybody in this movie. Like I said, Millicent Simmons. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name. Absolutely wonderful. Like I said, actually deaf in real life. She just steals your heart so early in the movie. You totally feel for her character. With things that are going on with her that just, again, make you buy in and just attach to these characters. And again, her facial expressions are priceless in this movie. and just so well conveyed and conceived. And like I said, you can tell that everyone really showed up big. Same with Noah Jupe. He is just the perfect like little kid to be running around in this movie, where like he gets like these looks of fear and panic at certain points in the movie that you're just like, oh my god, like you want to help him so bad, but then he has to do these unbelievably brave, fearless things. Not that he wants to, right? Like you can see he is hesitant and tense and terrified, but he knows he has to. And I love that. And then Cade Woodward, I mean, just talk about the most adorable little boy, man. Steals your heart at the beginning of this movie, and I mean, again, plays his role just to perfection. So I mean, our main characters, the family that we are with, they are all superb throughout the entire movie. And then we got our monsters, man, and the monsters in this movie are freaking cool. Look, Krasinski does such a great job of using glimpses, right? He doesn't hold back. We get to see these things pretty early on, but we never get to see them full on. We get to see them running real quick, so it's kind of like a blur. We get to see them as shadows falling behind you in the background. We get to see arms and like bits of their figure. But about 40 minutes till we finally get to see full on this whole thing. And when you do, man, it is worth every minute you wait to see it. It is terrifying looking and unique in the way it moves, and just, I mean, it has some elements to it that kind of make you think of another monster from something that's kind of relevant now in the horror realm. I'll give you that, but I thought it was very unique, very different, and really, really scary. And like it feels like it's always there. It doesn't feel like it's a CGI monster all the time. And when you get up close, man, the detail is crazy. And look, and they really make you scared. No messing around with these things. They mean business every time they're on screen, and you literally cringe and cower when they are, because they can kill you like that if they want to. But they have to hear you, man. They have no eyes, they have no sight. Everything is sound related. And they are terrifying. The weakness, when it's finally revealed, brilliant. Such a clever move. I love what it stems from and how it utilizes certain characters toward the end that just give you such an awesome payoff for, the specific character. I just love everything about it. And then, like I said, Krasinski does a really good job of balancing horror with beauty. Just like these really touching family moments. We saw some of them in the previews. Like when they're playing games with each other, and just like moments with them are just so beautiful. And specifically, there's a scene with Krasinski and his one son at a waterfall. That's just the way it's shot, the way it's delivered. It's so touching and it's so emotional. And then it has this really powerful conversation that really impacts his character and what he does toward the end of the movie. And that balance of beauty and horror, right? Like I mentioned Jordan Peele. When he did Get Out, it was a balance of horror and comedy. And this is more a balance of like beauty at its pure, innocent level to visually beautiful mixed with this horror. And it works so well. Now, last but not least, right? I said no spoilers, so we can't get like in. But there are 4 sequences in this movie that are just off the top fantastic, and it's why this movie is so good. As I mentioned, the opening scene is one of those. The second one is the scene, the bathtub scene with Emily Blunt that we see in the previews. Man, it is worth every penny you pay for this movie. It pays off. You knew that this was gonna be the big one, and it pays off, man. You squirm, and it's kind of an extended sequence. It's not just one individual scene, but the sequence that she goes through that leads her to the bathroom. That build-up is just like everything about that build-up just makes you squirm and go, oh no. And then when she's in the bathroom and what's in the bathtub and with what's going on, you're just like, oh my god, like, oh, horrifying. And the back end, when you see the results of what happened in the bathroom, oh man, Krasinski, he gets you good, man. And it's it lives up to everything that you'd want it to. The other big scene that she has is this flooded basement scene. The lighting and the shots in this scene, again, just amplify the tension to a billion. It's her and a creature in this basement. and it has this red lighting from the red lights from outside. It's pretty much the only lighting that you get, and it just creates a very distinct mood. And with what's going on in the room, you are just, and it is, again, almost as good as the bathtub scene. Not quite, but it's right there, man, and it builds crazy tension. Then, of course, there's the silo scene with the kids. They end up in a grain silo. That scene itself takes you through so many different versions of fear. I mean, you're going through claustrophobia, panic, actual, like, oh god, like scary creature, terrifying stuff. It's wonderful. And then that leads into Krasinski showing up to kind of help and save the kids. And then that leads to his big moment in the movie. And that whole stretch, man, from the silo to that moment, oh my god, it's magnificent. It's horrifying. It's heartbreaking, and just it's the part of the movie that sealed it for me, man. It got me. It got me. He got me so bad that my sister lost a bet because of it. You know me. You can probably put it together, but I don't want to spoil anything. And then finally the ending. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen maybe the next 10-15 minutes from where it actually ends, but the way in which it does. Like I said, the play into the weaknesses and how it ultimately ends, and the shot, the action, and the look that Emily Blunt gives the camera. I literally on opening night jumped up and was just like, yeah, let's go! Oh man, wonderful. Like, I love that shot. I think it could have gone 15 more minutes and then given me that shot. But like I said, way it was done, brilliant. John Krasinski in this movie is phenomenal. Man, give this guy all the praise. Give Emily Blunt, give Millicent Simmons, Noah Jupe, Cade Woodward, John Krasinski. Give this whole cast crew all the credit, man. This one of the most inventive, creative, magical horror films I've seen in a long time. I'm a horror junkie, and this is one of the best I've maybe ever seen. So well done. I was not expecting what I got, and what I got I was very happy with. So thank you, John Krasinski, for giving me one of my most memorable movies of the year, one of my most memorable theater experiences of the year. So that's all I've got to say, man. C-Man's run out of words. What do you got to say? If you've seen this movie, it's been out for a while. I hope you have. Please hit those comments, and let me know all of your thoughts. As always, if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe and little bell button so you get an alert every time I drop a new video. For the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, I am the C-Man, and I am signing off. Peace!